Yeah, good morning. Coffee Conversations with Greg J is on. What it do? Got my coffee. I don't know where you are in the world, but it's windy as all get out here at Long Beach, California, where we originate inside the Dream Creator Studio. So happy about today. Today is going to be an interesting conversation. We're going to take a very wide view of things around us. So, all right. So, Nomsa, you're listening to all of this, our big city problems out here. You live in a big city over there. Ooh, one of the largest cities on the whole continent of Africa, and how many listeners do you have? And then just say, I would like to have a clear understanding of how large your audience is. And then I'd love for you to, when you hear these Los Angeles problems, what are your initial thoughts?
Okay. Firstly, I work for the SABC News, which is a news agency for all the 20 radio stations that belong to the SABC. So, geez, I mean, we've got only one station that has 7 million listeners. So one of them. So it's a huge audience in terms of the radio market. SABC, radio has 70% of the radio market in South Africa, but we also have TV channels. We also have social media channels. So we have the majority of people, more especially those in poorer areas. Sometimes you find that the SABC News is the only source of information. So we really carry such a huge responsibility of ensuring that, the news that we carry is fair, it's impartial. So huge responsibility lies on our shoulders and our journalists as well. Listening to the mayoral candidate there, I mean, when he's asking about where did the money go, you thinking, is he talking about Johannesburg? Is he talking about the municipalities here in South Africa? So it seems like it's quite a global issue where you find that money that is supposed to serve people, that is supposed to be for the welfare of people, sometimes is used for something that it's not, for things that are not right. So it's also something that we tackle with all the time in South Africa. I don't know the extent of corruption here in the US, but here it's quite big, and it's something that the media here in South Africa has been quite dedicated to exposing as well, because that when the money goes into the pockets of politicians or people whom the money is not supposed to serve, that it means that people on the ground suffer and they don't get what is due to them.
Gnomes, I know that I'd like to just really concentrate on, we'd like to provide these different perspectives, and we're all about building bridges of music, arts, and culture with Africa and African Americans, and so we've had, I'm glad you came. We've had Tommy and Gobani on here a couple of times, and we talk about, we contrast. And I think one of the things I wanted to ask you about while we're getting Mayor Jackson is one thing that is on every news station in America is this war in Ukraine. And I listen to South African radio just because I love the music, I love the perspectives, and news, from a news perspective, your view of the world is a little different. And I thought that it was really, really interesting to hear when the war first broke out. I was listening to South African radio. I'm hearing people from the Russian embassy on the air, explaining what their position was. And I said, oh, wow, this is really, really interesting. Whereas here, you don't hear that, you don't get that perspective. It's just that we're told that Russia is doing a bad thing and all of that. And I'm still trying to figure out the whole, reasoning of it. But I heard Julius Malema, the opposition leader in your country, say that they were going to stand with Russia because Russia stood with South Africa during apartheid. Then the other day, I know that they had at the United Nations, they had a vote, and South Africa abstained from the vote. And President Biden and Cyril Ramaphosa, the president of South Africa, got together to caucus. What was that about? What's your view?
One thing that I love about South Africa, and that I also hate about South Africa at the same time, is we try to be nice to everyone. So a lot of the instances, because we're trying our level best to be the middle person, sometimes it's not for good. So yes, the ruling ANC or the government of the day, is seen to be taking sides with Russia because it has not condemned Russia. But the official statement from government is that it's not going to take sides, but what it's going to do is encourage dialogue between the two parties. About last month, you had the president, Cyril Ramaphosa, giving a call to Vladimir Putin. We don't quite know what the context of the call is all about, but there has been a lot of criticism on the ground, saying that even if you have a relationship with a certain country, you can still condemn their actions as well. So, what you've also said about Julius Malema and the fact that the Soviet Union stood with South Africa during apartheid, Ukraine was also part of the Soviet Union. So that's also what people don't realize. And that's always been the issue with our government, is that, with all the human rights atrocities that South Africa, more especially the Black majority, experienced in the past, we should be the first to condemn such actions when it happens in other countries. But our government is always, cautious when it comes to these things. And sometimes it is annoying, but there are people on the ground, other opposition parties like the Democratic Alliance, where there's a Western Cape legislature where they govern, where they actually lit the building with the colors of Ukraine. You've got ordinary South Africans that have come out and outrightly condemned that attack on Russia. In terms of news coverage, it's been a tricky one to cover because a lot of our local media do not have agencies in both these countries. So we've also been, in terms of feeds, we've been relying on overseas media as far as that story is concerned. So it's been a tough balancing act where people have also ordinary South Africans have also said we want to hear both sides of the story, and this is something that we've also tried to do as well.
Absolutely. Wow. So Nomsa, thank you so much for coming here. Listen, I want to ask you, all right, I want to just switch lanes to pop culture real quick. Headlines. Did you guys in South Africa, do y'all care that Will Smith slapped Chris Rock? Was that big news in your area?
It was huge. I mean, I had other plans for Monday morning. I get there at 3 a.m. in the morning, and we're preparing for a typical Monday morning when it's mainly court stories. And of course, this happened. This happened, and it sparked a lot of conversations about the protection of Black women, was Will Smith right in protecting his wife that way? But it also spoke to, there were also discussions of it seems like we are accustomed to solving conflict through violence. And we have to find other ways. And that has to do with our violent history. As a people, I'm not going to say just Black people, but it seems like as the human race, we have to find better ways. There could have been a better way for Will Smith to handle that. I think for me, the only way in which one can justify violence is when somebody's life is at risk. And you're trying to protect them. And the sad thing about him is he won an Oscar right after that incident, and it took away that glory, unfortunately. And I about a month ago, I actually read his book, where he actually spoke about his father's violent ways. So it was just so sad that, his glorious moment was just taken away by that act. Of course, we love the Oscars.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Okay. See, that's so interesting. What is your, what did you think when Jada said, "Hey, I'm not a woman who needs protecting"?
I actually somehow I missed that. Yeah, perhaps her and her husband need to have a talk about how to handle such situations, and it shouldn't play out in public. Yes, what Chris Rock said and the way he went on about Jada, and the fact that the condition that Jada has is a medical condition. The things that you should joke about, but not somebody's medical condition. So I found that to be quite childish and uncalled for. The Smiths, man.
In this space of entertainment and pop culture gossip, what's the big story in South Africa?
What's going on?
She's like, I don't know. I'll bring in the real news.
I hardly follow those. We have so much happening at the moment. We have floods, we have interesting court cases. So those are the kind of things that I have been consuming myself with. Nothing quite happening. Yeah.
Well, let's see. So the number one news story right now, is it the Ukraine war, or what's going on?
No, there are a lot of so we had a goalkeeper who was also the captain of our national soccer team, who was murdered.
Bafana.
Yes, Bafana, Senzo Meyiwa. It's just been a murder case. You must actually go onto Netflix and watch it. So the trial has finally started. 5 men have been accused of being, involved in the murder, but we still don't know who the mastermind is.
Okay, so wait. So
the documentary is on Netflix.
And what's it called?
It's called Senzo Meyiwa. SENZO MEYIWA.
Is this the one that was married to the singer?
Well, the singer was the side chick. Senzo was actually married. He had another wife. So now after
the
this,
gospel singer.
She's not. She's a pop singer. Yeah, I think maybe she established her her career singing gospel. I don't know.
Okay.
But what's been happening? Senzo was married, so this lady that she was having an affair with Senzo was killed in front of her and her family. So of course there was big family wars and all that. But people are asking, it seemed like she didn't have a motive. The wife had more of a motive. So yes, people who pulled the trigger have been arrested, but what we are waiting for is actually for the mastermind to appear in court, because we want to know who that person is and what the motive is, because a lot of people saying this guy was at the peak of his career. He was such a nice guy. Nobody could imagine somebody having ill feelings towards him. So that's what we're waiting for.
Wow, very interesting.
Yeah. So that's been one of the big stories. We've had heavy rains, and in Durban, which is a coastal area, about 44 people have died. We heard the news today. So yeah, that's we've ruined our planet.
Speaking of Durban, that's KwaZulu-Natal, Kingdom of the Zulus, and we have. We hear so much in America about the British royals. Oh my God, they're all over the news, So when King Goodwill Zwelithini passed away, and then the Queen passed away, I began to share on this platform. I wanted, African Americans to know that, hey, here's a royal story, you know what I'm saying, in Mother Africa, And I know that recently the president recognized, I guess, the new king of the Zulus, and it's all good and everything like that. Express to our audience why that's important to, traditional leadership and all of that being kind of mixed in with, your regular government and everything. Why is that important? And when's the coronation? Because I'm trying to come.
Well, it's important because during the apartheid years, a certain language and a certain culture was subjected on Black people, and we lost a lot of who we are. So by government recognizing traditional leadership, it's a preservation of our culture. And South Africa is so multicultural. I mean, we've got 11 official languages. And you don't find it's quite a multicultural society, but you still do want those people to preserve who they are, their language, their African way of life, because colonialism and apartheid took that away from us. So the coronation is on the 28th of May. And because, the Zulu nation is South Africa's largest nation, the Zulu language is widely spoken across the country. So it's quite a big thing. It's quite a big thing what happens in that royal family. There've been fights in terms of who should take over, but that's what you get in a polygamous situation. So that's what's been happening. So yeah, so King Misuzulu Kazwelithini will become the next king of the Amazulu nation. That will be the 28th of May.
How do I get some media credentials? Come on, hook a brother up. Let me come over there. I want to come and do it, but I really want to see it and report on it, because I just think it's fascinating, to us, and well, to me. I mean, I just started just putting it out there. I met King Goodwill when I was in Durban.
Oh, you did? I've never met him.
We ran into him. We ran into him in a store, and they wouldn't let us take pictures or anything, but it was him.
He had a very strong presence, and what we actually heard about his death is that he went in for another problem, and while he was in hospital, he actually contracted COVID-19.
Oh, okay.
So it was quite a shock, when that news came, because he commanded such a presence, and more than a year later, there's the heir to the throne will ascend. And I must say, I love all South African cultures, but there's just something majestic about the Zulu culture.
It
So
really is.
I think the coronation is going to be something else. Maybe that's why I got me a Zulu man.
That's right. That's right. Now, are you going to the coronation?
No, I'm not. I'll be watching the proceedings from the comfort of my own home.
Okay. All
But
right.
we've got reporters covering that.
Do me a favor. Look and see how I could get some credentials in there.
Let's talk about that off air.
Talk about that. Yeah, that's it's interesting. We've been like I said, we've been covering it, and when I look at the new king's picture, I see that he looks exactly like I think that's his great grandfather,
King Cetshwayo. There's such a strong resemblance.
OMG, it is real. It's like, what? Really something. And I remember him, I'll tell you a story, Nomsa, that I come over there for the Cape Town Jazz Festival and everything. So I'm bringing one of my groups and we go to the fort in Cape Town right there, right?
Yes.
And, anyway, the fort, my groups are African Americans. So by the time we get to Cape Town on that tour, we've seen a lot of apartheid stuff and under the good time that we're having, we got a little bit of an attitude, right? So we go into this fort, and you're seeing the European, influence on really at a high level inside of that fort. And then when you go and there's these statues of their famous prisoners that they had, they were very proud that they captured these people and put down. And one of them was King, say it again, Cetshwayo. And I would remember I took a picture with that statue, and I remember just being really, really upset that, they took such pride in capturing this king of the Zulus, and it was really just made me angry. So I studied his story and everything like that. And so then when this new king came and I looked at the pictures, I was like, oh, wow, that's definitely his son. So you say this is because of a polygamous society that they were having such disagreements within the family.
It was because there was a court case. So in South Africa, you can either get married under customary law, and under customary law, it means you can take as many wives as you want. So it makes room for polygamous relationship. There's also a civil union, which it's one man, one wife. So when the king first married his wife, it was under civil union. And then that was before he ascended to the throne. So after he ascended to the throne, he then took Misuzulu's mother. Misuzulu's mother is a princess of Eswatini. So her father was a king. And actually, the whole of the Zulu nation paid lobola to her. So lobola was taken to the kingdom of Eswatini, which neighbors South Africa, and she came. So and then obviously other wives came. So then the first wife was obviously disputing the will of the will and testament of the king, which gave the queen who passed away last year, Queen Ntombifuthi from Eswatini, it kind of made her to be in charge of executing. So she was the executor. And it also stated that she must choose the next king. So now the first wife was disputing that. Obviously, if it was just one wife, and so they've always been. But if you study the history of AmaZulu and the appointment of a king, it's never been an easy road. I mean, even King Zwelithini, at some point in the early years, or when he was appointed king, he had to hide because there were death threats. You think of Shaka Zulu as well, and his brothers. Shaka was killed by his brothers. So the Zulu throne has always been a contentious thing, you know, and in dating back to history, it's led to bloodshed. Well, things have changed now. Thankfully, this has not happened with Musuzulu, but you know, there've been court proceedings back and forth. So if you read that history, it's also quite interesting.
Very much so. Wow, wow, that's really something, you know. And I did see one thing about it is when the Queen passed, and I posted that on my social media. I mean, I got so many people, you know, asking, why don't we know about this queen? Why don't we know about this queen? You know, and you know, these are just the stories that we don't, you know, we don't know about here in America, and it's just a point of interest, you know.
Yeah, we live in a patriarchal society, and a lot of these great men are made by the women that stand behind them.
That's right.
And a lot of the times we get to read about these amazing women when the husbands die. So it's a patriarchal society that we live in, unfortunately.
I know that polygamy. I was in Zululand, and a radio broadcaster, one of your broadcasters for the SABC. I was at an event, and he was there. I had met him. He was here in America. That's where I met him. And then when I saw him at the event, he had 3 wives, and he says, "Oh, let me introduce you to my 3 wives." And I was like, "Okay." My dude, yes.
Some people don't mind sharing. Some people were brought up in that cultural context.
Yeah,
It suits others. It does not suit women like me. But
that's right.
we just embrace people's choices, I guess.
And I went into Eswatini. It was Swaziland then. I rented a car, and I drove from Durban all into Swaziland and all around. And a friend of mine who works in the King's administration had arranged some meetings for me all through the area. It was really a fascinating trip for me to be driving all over, you know, all over the Kingdom of Swaziland. It was pretty cool. You know, and
Well,
so
you
much.
seem like you've traveled Southern Africa quite. We can't wait to have you again.
Yeah, we're planning next year. We just came back from Ghana, so I've been doing West Africa. So December I was in Ghana, and we are planning to go again this year. And then in 2023, I want to come back to the Cape Town Jazz Festival.
It will be nice to have you back.
Yes, yes. All right. Nomsa, can you please tell me the correct pronunciation of your last name?
It's Mdhluli. Mdhluli. It's quite a complex one.
Yes,
Mdhluli.
Mdhluli. Yes.
Mdhluli. Yeah.
Okay, there you go. Award-winning broadcaster. She is definitely the woman. Now, you know what, Nomsa? I want to ask you if you would just, from time to time, come back to Coffee Conversations, and let's have a conversation about compare news headlines. Right? I think this is this could be a really good piece of source of information for the people, because we in America, you know, African Americans, we are searching for our roots. We are more awake now than we have been in a long time. There is a cultural revolution now going on among the people, and part of that elevation that should come out of cultural revolution is connection with Mother Africa, West, South, East, and North. You know, we need to do that. And I think also, too, we want to dispel myths about Africa, because, you know, some Black folk, when they thinking what they show us with the diseased children and the starving kids and the famine and all of this stuff that they show us in America, we don't know that there are progressive, intelligent, goal-oriented executives like yourself over there on the continent of Africa. And so I think it's
There's
my
a lot
job
on
to
that. Yeah.
right?
And that's also why it's important for Africans to tell their story. Yeah.
That's a true thing. So we need to keep this channel open. Call me anytime. Let's get it.
Will do. I'll be
Okay.
glad to be back. Thank you so much, Greg. It was nice catching up with you again.
Yes, nice to catch up with you too. Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, y'all. I'll circle back with you. I have something to ask you. Okay. All right, y'all. There we have it. Coffee Conversations with Greg J. Sister Nomsa Mdhluli. Nomsa is a renowned broadcaster, editor over there in South Africa. Millions and millions of readers and listeners that she commands, and she's just sharing a few headlines and perspectives. You can get us on our Facebook page, Coffee Conversations with Greg J. We're gonna repurpose this and publish the audio podcast. So wherever you get your favorite podcast, we're there. Just go Coffee Conversations with Greg J. Thank you all so much for joining us on today. I just really, 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 really appreciate y'all. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Just love one another today. Love one another. Peace and blessings.